Edna poured from a pink teapot that had seen better days. The roses on its side looked scrubbed. There were a couple of little chips on the handle, although Edna kept her hand firmly over them. She smiled broadly and handed Doris and Sidney their cups of tea. Gerald didn't take his cup. He was sulking, not even looking at the table neatly laid with a nice white tablecloth and a bunch of white chrysanthemums in a designer pot. Maybe he was insulted that the designer pot was actually made of plastic. Doris sipped at her tea, but Sidney, due to his teeth, slurped his rather too loudly for polite company. Doris shook her head sorrowfully, catching Edna's eye, as if to say, "Men, you can't take 'em anywhere." Edna seemed to nod in agreement and nibbled at a rock cake from the cake stand. She was clearly oblivious that she had neglected to offer them to the others. Sidney didn't stand on ceremony. He rather rudely reached across the table and grabbed one. He ate it in just 2 big chomps, the crumbs falling onto his lap. Doris looked even more sorrowful. Sidney hadn't been the same since he started to turn grey. Gerald now decided that he wanted tea and cake after all, and reached over the table. This caused a quite extraordinary reaction in Edna. She bit Gerald's arm, just like that, hard. For a moment there was a stunned silence as the 4 of them sat there, wondering what Gerald would do. Gerald looked at his bitten arm in astonishment, then looked back at Edna, who calmly finished her rock cake. Pandemonium broke out. Gerald lunged across the table at Edna. Doris threw her teacup at Sidney, and Edna started shrieking. The rock cakes got hurled and the teapot got clattered on the floor, spraying them all with tea. Gerald grabbed the chrysanthemums out of the designer pot and whacked Doris over the head with them. It was all too much for Sidney, who left the table and went to sit in the corner, inspecting his armpits for fleas. Despite the cheering from the audience, the chimpanzee handlers hurriedly intervened and announced that the show was over. The cheers turned to boos. As she led her grandson away, Audrey Bolton reflected that it had all been rather tawdry, and that it wasn't such a bad thing that chimps' tea parties had been banned in England. And yet, 3 weeks later, and back in England, Audrey was pouring the tea from her immaculate Royal Dalton teapot for the insufferable Vera and Stan Bingham, and passing the cakes to the even more odious Martha Granger. Audrey felt her hands twitch. She looked at the flowers in the vase on the tea table. She suddenly understood why she'd been moved to choose white chrysanthemums.